High in the rugged peaks of the Andes, a civilization once thrived that defied the limits of human ingenuity, building vast cities of stone without mortar, carving roads through impossible terrain, and vanishing almost as mysteriously as they appeared. The Inca Empire wasn't just a kingdom, it was a marvel of engineering, a tapestry of secrets woven into the very mountains they called home. Even today, their legacy whispers through ruins that cling to cliffsides, through tunnels buried beneath sacred soil, and through questions that still keep archaeologists awake at night. What hidden knowledge did the Inca possess? How did they achieve feats that modern science struggles to explain? And why, after centuries of study, do so many of their greatest mysteries remain unsolved? Picture this, an empire that stretched over 2,000 miles, connected by a network of roads so advanced, they put European infrastructure of the same era to shame. Yet the Inca left no written records, only the silent testimony of their stones, their gold, and the stories passed down through generations. Some secrets were meant to be kept. Some were lost to time, and some are waiting, even now, to be uncovered. From the haunting precision of Machu Picchu's alignment with the stars to the eerie prophecies etched into temple walls, every corner of the Inca world holds a puzzle begging to be solved. This is a journey into the shadows of history, where legend and fact blur together. We're about to unravel 25 of the most astonishing hidden secrets of the Inca Empire, secrets that challenge what we think we know about their technology, their spirituality, and their sudden fall. You'll discover how they moved massive boulders with what seemed like supernatural ease, why their mummies hold clues to a forgotten science, and what cryptic messages might still be hidden in the knots of their mysterious quipu cords. These aren't just footnotes in a textbook, they're pieces of a story that rewrites our understanding of the past. So lean in close, the mountains are about to speak. Perched on a razor-thin ridge between two towering Andean peaks, Machu Picchu seems to defy gravity, a city of stone floating above the clouds. But why was it built in such an impossible place? The answer might lie in the whispers of the wind through its temples. While many assume it was a royal escape for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti, the truth is far more intriguing. Hidden beneath the terraces and temples are clues suggesting this was no ordinary retreat. The Intihuatana stone, a precisely carved ritual pillar, aligns perfectly with the sun during solstices, casting no shadow at high noon, proof the site was engineered as a celestial calendar. And those winding terraces, they're not just for agriculture. Recent studies reveal they mirror constellations visible only during sacred festivals, turning the entire city into a living map of the heavens. Then there's the mystery of its abandonment. Unlike other Inca sites, Machu Picchu shows no signs of battle or Spanish plunder. It was simply left. Some researchers believe the Inca sealed its pathways with deliberate landslides, burying sacred knowledge under layers of earth. Local Quechua elders still speak of Lacta Pacta, a pact to conceal holy places from invaders. Could this explain why Spanish chronicles never mentioned it? The jungle swallowed Machu Picchu for 400 years, guarding secrets modern archaeologists are only beginning to decode. Even its name is a puzzle. Historians argue Machu Picchu might be a modern mislabel, while original Inca texts referred to it as Tampu Tioco, the Cave of Windows, hinting at hidden portals or spiritual gateways. But the greatest enigma is its acoustics. Stand in the Temple of the Condor, and your voice echoes unnaturally, amplified by stones cut at precise angles. Was this designed for rituals or something else? Engineers marvel at how the entire city resonates like a tuning fork during certain winds, suggesting the Inca understood harmonic frequencies lost to modern science. Every curve of its walls, every alignment of its doors whispers of a purpose deeper than archaeology can yet name. Machu Picchu wasn't just hidden by geography, it was protected by design, a sacred puzzle box waiting for the right hands to open it. The legend begins with a king's ransom, enough gold to fill an entire room, stacked wall to wall, a fortune that would make even the greediest conquistador tremble. When the Spanish captured the Inca Emperor Atahualpa in 1532, they demanded unfathomable wealth for his freedom. A room 22 feet long and 17 feet wide, filled once with gold and twice with silver. The Inca delivered. For months, caravans of llamas streamed into Cajamarca, bearing treasures from across the empire: solid gold statues of gods, intricate ceremonial vessels, sheets of hammered metal pried from temple walls. But just as the ransom neared completion, the Spanish betrayed their promise, strangling Atahualpa and igniting a mystery that still haunts treasure hunters today. Because not all the gold arrived, chronicles speak of a final convoy led by the General Rumiñahui that vanished into the Andes with the empire's most sacred relics. Some say he diverted the treasure to the Danganats Mountains, a labyrinth of fog-choked peaks where his men built hidden caves or sank the gold into bottomless lakes. Others whisper of a secret pact that Inca priests melted the artifacts into ingots and hid them in a network of underground tunnels, maps encoded in quipu knots. For centuries, expeditions have vanished searching for it. In the 1930s, explorer Erwin von Hagen claimed to find a gold-filled cavern, only for his notes to mysteriously burn before he could reveal the location. But the greatest clue might lie in an overlooked detail: Atahualpa's last words. According to Spanish chroniclers, as the noose tightened, he vowed his people would hide their wealth so thoroughly that even the sun could not find it. Was this a curse or a clue? Modern researchers have discovered that many Inca sites align with solstice sunrises, suggesting the gold could be buried in places where sunlight strikes just once a year. Some even speculate the infamous Tungsten Gate, discovered in Peru's highlands, a stone slab sealed with molten metal, might be the vault's entrance. Yet every attempt to open it has failed, as if the mountains themselves are guarding their secret. The lost gold isn't just treasure. It's the final act of defiance from a civilization that refused to let its soul be plundered. Hidden in museum vaults and forgotten archives lie strange tangles of knotted strings, some as short as a handspan, others stretching longer than a man's arm. These are quipus, the Incas' enigmatic talking knots, and they might hold secrets modern cryptography can't untangle. At first glance, they resemble simple accounting tools, colored cords with precise clusters of knots recording numbers like an ancient spreadsheet. But when Spanish chroniclers described Inca scribes, reading these strings aloud in court, recounting laws and legends with flawless accuracy, it hinted at something far more profound. Unlike any other civilization, the Inca may have woven their entire history into threads, creating a language without paper, ink, or alphabet. The complexity is staggering. Each quipu combines up to 2,000 chords in intricate patterns, with knot types indicating different values. Figure 8 knots for tens, long knots for hundreds, even the direction of the twist encoding meaning. Colors carry significance too: red for warriors, yellow for gold, green for harvests, but recent discoveries reveal layers beyond basic record keeping. A quipu found near Lima in 2016 contained a rare 3-tiered structure, suggesting nested narratives like chapters in a book. Another, recovered from a burial site, had knots dyed with a pigment found only in distant Amazonian plants. Was this a diplomatic message or a map to hidden territories? The real breakthrough came when anthropologists studied contemporary Quechua weavers in remote Andean villages. Though the oral traditions were fragmented, elders described how certain knot patterns corresponded to syllables, not just numbers. One grandmother demonstrated weaving a quipu while reciting a creation myth, pausing at each knot cluster to emphasize key phrases. This living clue points to a hybrid system, part mathematical, part linguistic, that could rewrite our understanding of pre-Columbian communication. Yet the full code remains locked away, partly because Spanish priests burned thousands of quipus as devil's work. and partly because the last master quipu died guarding their knowledge. Modern technology offers tantalizing hope. Researchers are using spectral imaging to analyze faded dyes and machine learning to map knot sequences across surviving quipus, searching for grammatical patterns. Early results show recurring combinations that may represent names of kings or cities, but some knots refuse to yield, like those dipped in a now unknown resin, preserving them perfectly while erasing their color codes. The deeper mystery, why certain quipus were tied with cords spun from the hair of sacrificial llamas, as if the knots themselves were sacred beings. Perhaps the truth isn't just in the strings, but in the spaces between them, the silent gaps where the Inca left room for the unspeakable. Deep in the bone-filled caves of the Andes, archaeologists have uncovered skulls with something shocking, perfectly circular holes drilled into living bone, edges smoothed by healing. This wasn't violence, it was medicine. The Inca performed trepanation surgical skull drilling with a precision that baffles modern neurosurgeons. While Europeans of the same era bled patients with leeches, Inca healers were relieving brain swelling, treating fractures, and perhaps even attempting to cure mental illness with tools made of obsidian and bronze. The numbers defy belief. Studies of over 800 Trep and Inca skulls reveal a survival rate exceeding 80% higher than American Civil War surgeons achieved with anesthesia centuries later. How? The answer lies in their meticulous methods. Incision marks show they avoided major blood vessels, scraping rather than cutting to minimize hemorrhage. Some skulls even show multiple healed holes, proof patients returned for repeat procedures. One warrior's skull from Cusco displays 5 separate operations over his lifetime, each hole rimmed with smooth bone growth. But the most startling discovery came in 2019, when researchers analyzing a skull from Machu Picchu found microscopic traces of coca leaves, and maize beer in the bone pours early evidence of antiseptic rituals and possibly even primitive anesthesia. Quechua oral traditions speak of surgeons chanting as they worked, using hallucinogenic plants to dull pain while aligning the operation with celestial events. The true purpose remains debated. While some holes clearly treated head trauma, others align with spiritual points on the skull described in later Andean energy maps. Were the Inca merging physical and spiritual healing? A clue may lie in their tools. Trefines found at Vilcabamba have handles carved with serpent motifs, symbolizing regeneration. Every drilled skull tells the same story, a medical tradition so advanced its secrets still pulse beneath the scars of time. Beneath the colossal zigzagging walls of Sacsayhuaman, where stones weighing hundreds of tons fit together like a jigsaw puzzle, lies another marvel, one far more elusive. A network of tunnels snakes through the darkness, some wide enough for a procession, others so narrow they force explorers to crawl. While the fortress above ground has been studied for centuries, these underground passages remain one of the Incas' most guarded secrets. Local legends call them chincanas, meaning places to get lost, and for good reason. Early Spanish chronicles tell of conquistadors who ventured in with torches, never to return. Modern expeditions have mapped only fragments, their progress halted by collapses or, more unsettling, by doors of fitted stone that seem to seal themselves over time. What were these tunnels for? Theories abound. Some archaeologists argue they served as escape routes during sieges, citing hidden exits that emerge miles away in the sacred valley of Cusco. Others point to strange acoustic properties, whispers carried between certain chambers with eerie clarity, suggesting ritual use, but the most compelling clues come from the walls themselves. Infrared scans reveal patches of a metallic alloy unknown to modern metallurgy, embedded in the rock like artificial veins. Could these be remnants of a mining operation or something more esoteric? Quechua elders speak of Ilapa, the god of lightning, who supposedly forged the tunnels in a single night, melting stone with celestial fire. The truth may lie in a mix of function and symbolism. Recent LiDAR imaging shows tunnels aligning with constellations visible during the June solstice when the Inca celebrated Inti Raymi. One newly discovered shaft points directly toward the rising sun on that day, flooding the passage with light for precisely 17 minutes, a number sacred to Inca cosmology. Yet many tunnels defy explanation, like the Hall of Echoes, where footsteps reverberate in patterns that mimic the calls of sacred birds. Why do so many passages stay unexplored? The answer is part practicality, part reverence. Some are blocked by deliberate Inca stonework, their mortar mixed with a resin that hardens like steel when exposed to air. Others are protected by modern laws, as indigenous communities warn of Huaca's spirits that guard the underworld. In 2018, a team using ground-penetrating radar detected a vast chamber beneath the fortress's central plaza, but permission to excavate was denied. The reason given: the Earth is not ready to give up its secrets. Perhaps the tunnels were never meant to be fully known. To the Inca, the underworld wasn't just a physical space. It was a mirror of the cosmos, a place where the living and the dead could whisper to each other through stone. In the frozen peaks of the Andes, where the air is too thin for even birds to fly, the Inca left behind guardians of their legacy, mummies so perfectly preserved their eyelashes still flutter in the mountain wind. These weren't just bodies, they were living bridges to the spirit world, rulers frozen in time through elaborate rituals that blurred the line between death and divinity. When archaeologists uncovered the first of these mummies on the slopes of Mount Ampoto in the 1990s, they found a teenage girl wrapped in textiles finer than royal tapestries, her face eerily peaceful, her hands clutching offerings of gold. They called her the Ice Maiden, but the local Quechua knew her as Nyusta, a sacred sacrifice chosen to commune with the gods. The preservation methods defy science. Internal organs remained intact after 500 years, skin still supple enough to reveal tattoos of celestial patterns. The secret: a toxic cocktail of coca leaves, maize alcohol, and an unknown resin smeared over the skin, a formula that repelled decay while turning the body into a time capsule. But the real shock came when researchers noticed something peculiar. Every scientist who handled the mummies without ritual protection suffered unexplainable misfortunes, equipment failures, sudden illnesses, even freak accidents. One conservator reported dreaming of the Ice Maiden pointing at him, whispering in a language he'd never heard but somehow understood. "You woke me too soon," she'd said. The curse lore deepened when a team opened the tomb of Pachacuti, the empire's greatest builder. His mummy, clad in a headdress of spun gold and emerald, disintegrated within hours of exposure to air, a phenomenon physicists still can't explain, as if the very molecules holding it together rebelled against the modern world. Quechua elders weren't surprised. They'd long warned that Inca mummies were malquis, vessels holding the life force of ancestors who could bless or punish the living. Spanish chronicles from the 1500s recount how Inca priests would consult seated mummies during crises, their lips moved by hidden strings as they spoke prophecies. Perhaps the most haunting discovery came from a CT scan of a child mummy in 2017. Nestled within its ribcage was a tiny pouch containing powdered meteoric iron, a metal the Inca associated with falling stars and divine messages. But the scan also revealed something darker: microscopic spores of a fungus never before documented, dormant until the mummy was disturbed. Coincidence? The researchers who inhaled those spores during the study later developed identical, incurable lung lesions. Science calls it contamination, the Andes whisper of a warning. These mummies weren't meant to be found. They were sentinels, and their curses might just be the last surviving law of a vanished empire. Across the spine of the Andes, where mountains tear at the sky and valleys plunge into shadow, the Inca built a communication network that outpaced even the swiftest horse without a single hoofbeat. The secret: the Chasqui, a corps of relay runners who turned the empire's 15,000 miles of stone roads into a living, breathing nervous system. Picture a message traveling from Quito to Cusco, a distance greater than New York to Miami, in just 5 days. That's faster than a 16th century Spanish cavalry could manage, and achieved without wheels, without beasts of burden. Just the rhythmic pounding of sandals on stone and a system so precise it functioned like clockwork. Each chasqui was an athlete trained from childhood, stationed in pairs at small stone huts called tambos, spaced every 6 miles along the royal highways. When a runner approached, winded from sprinting uphill at altitudes that leave modern hikers gasping, his waiting partner would match his stride mid-step, taking the knotted quipu message or memorized oral report without breaking momentum. The system never slept. At night, runners carried torches made from resin-soaked bark, their flames visible across the mountains like a chain of moving stars. Some tambos even kept coca leaves and fermented maize beer on hand, an ancient energy drink combo to combat fatigue and altitude sickness, but speed was only part of the miracle. The chasqui were more than messengers, they were human encryption. Sensitive information was never written down. Instead, elite runners memorized verses in Quipu Simi, the sacred Lord's tongue, a linguistic cipher that twisted ordinary Quechua into coded poetry. A report about rebel activity might be disguised as a ballad about hawks hunting mice. Spanish chroniclers complained of intercepting runners only to hear the devil's riddles, their meanings evaporating like mist. The system's true genius lay in its adaptability. During wars, chasqui altered their routes hourly to avoid capture. In peacetime, they carried everything from royal decrees to fresh seafood for the emperor's table, oysters from the Pacific, still dripping brine when they reached Cusco's heights. One account describes a runner delivering a basket of strawberries from the coast, the fruit so perfectly preserved, the emperor found dew still clinging to the leaves. Yet the chasqui's greatest legacy might be what they didn't carry. Unlike the Spanish, who relied on paper vulnerable to fire or theft, the Inca entrusted their most vital knowledge to living memory. When the empire fell, the chasqui network collapsed with it, but whispers persist. In remote villages, elders still teach children foot memory games, tracing old relay routes through song. And sometimes, when the light slants just right, travelers claim to see shadows racing along broken stretches of the Quipu, their breath steady, their messages forever just out of reach. Stretching across Peru's arid Nazca Desert, vast geoglyphs of spiders, hummingbirds, and geometric shapes have puzzled researchers for decades. But what if these weren't just the work of the Nazca culture? Mounting evidence suggests the Inca may have reinterpreted or even expanded these ancient designs, weaving them into their own cosmic vision. While the Nazca lines date back centuries before the Inca Empire's rise, recent drone surveys reveal previously unnoticed alignments that mirror Inca solar observatories. One colossal trapezoid points directly toward the December solstice sunrise, a phenomenon central to Inca sun worship. Nearby, a serpent-shaped geoglyph curves precisely along an underground aquifer, mirroring the Incas' sacred veneration of water as a living force. The connection deepens with the discovery of Inca-era pottery shards scattered near key Nazca figures. These fragments depict designs identical to the desert drawings, suggesting the Inca ritualistically retraced the lines during pilgrimages. Even more telling are the sect lines, an invisible web of spiritual pathways the Inca marked across their empire, connecting temples to sacred mountains. When superimposed over the Nazca Plateau, these alignments intersect with major geoglyphs at points corresponding to Inca astronomical events. Was this coincidence or deliberate integration? Theories diverge. Some scholars argue the Inca saw the Nazca lines as Apu's manifestations of mountain spirits and enhanced them with their own markers. Others point to oral histories describing Pachacuti, the empire's greatest builder, sending priests to awaken the earth drawings through ceremonies. Most compelling is a hybrid geoglyph near Palpa, a classic Nazca monkey overlaid with an Inca-style stepped cross. its arms aligned to Orion's belt during the June solstice. But the boldest claim comes from spectral analysis. In 2021, researchers using ground-penetrating radar detected buried stone platforms at Nazca's edge, identical to Inca Ushna's ceremonial altars for channeling celestial energy. Nearby, the soil contained traces of chicha, maize, beer, and coca leaves, offerings still used in Andean rituals today. Quechua elders speak of Yacana, a celestial llama said to drink from underground rivers, its constellation mirrored in both Nazca and Inca star maps. Perhaps the lines weren't just art, but a language of earth and sky, inherited and expanded by the last great empire of the Andes. One mystery lingers: how the Inca might have viewed these massive designs without flight. The answer might lie in a forgotten technology: polished obsidian mirrors found at Machu Picchu, capable of reflecting sunlight over vast distances. During solstice sunrises, certain Nazca figures blaze to life when hit by these mirrored beams, their outlines illuminated for miles. Whether the Inca created this effect intentionally or simply honored its power, the result is the same: a bridge between cultures, etched not just in sand but in the very alignment of the heavens. Imagine standing at the tip of a mountain spring high above Machu Picchu, watching water defy gravity as it flows upward through stone channels without a single pump. This wasn't magic, it was Inca engineering, a water network so advanced modern hydrologists still study its principles today. Across the empire, from the arid coasts to the cloud forests, the Inca built aqueducts that danced with physics, fountains that sang with hydraulics, and temples where water itself seemed to worship the gods. Their secret, a marriage of precision and reverence, where every drop was measured and every spring was sacred. Take the royal baths of Tambamache, a water temple near Cusco known as the Inca Spa. Here, crystal-clear canals cascade down 4 terraces of perfectly fitted stone, splitting into twin streams that mirror each other's flow with mathematical perfection. The water never varies, not in drought, not in flood, always delivering exactly the same volume to each channel. Archaeologists discovered why when they traced the system upstream. The Inca had engineered hidden underground reservoirs with adjustable stone gates, creating a self-regulating valve system that predated modern plumbing by centuries. But the real marvel is acoustical. Stand beside the central fountain at dawn, and you'll hear the water's pitch rise with the sun, a phenomenon caused by air pressure changes in the temple's engineered cavities. Was this an accident or a deliberate hydro-musical tribute to the sunrise? Then there's Tupon, the Everest of hydraulic engineering. This sprawling complex features 12 terraces fed by a single stone canal that climbs uphill at a 15-degree angle, a feat modern engineers initially dismissed as impossible without pumps. The trick lay in the channel's secret geometry. Inca builders carved the conduit with a series of subtle zigzags, creating controlled turbulence that pushed water upward through sheer kinetic energy. Even more astonishing, the system included air relief chambers, tiny vertical shafts that prevented vapor lock, a concept Europe wouldn't grasp until the Industrial Revolution. Local farmers still use these canals today, their flow unchanged after 500 years, but the crown jewel sits at Machu Picchu. 16 fountains thread through the city like a liquid necklace, each fed by a mile-long stone aqueduct from a mountain spring. Modern analysis reveals the gradient is precise to within 1 degree any steeper, and erosion would wreck the channels any flatter, and stagnation would breed disease. The Inca achieved this without levels or theodolites, likely using a simple but ingenious tool: suspended gourds filled to marked water lines, yet the fountains weren't just practical. At the Temple of the Condor, water emerges through a carved stone mouth, hitting a resonant chamber beneath the altar that produces a haunting whistle, a sound matching the cry of the sacred bird it's named for. The true genius, though, lies in what's invisible. Using ground-penetrating radar, researchers recently mapped a vast underground system beneath Ollantaytambo. Here, the Inca constructed filter galleries, layers of gravel, sand, and charcoal that purified water millennia before modern filtration. Even more remarkable are the slow-release canals discovered near Moray, designed to seep water gradually into terraced fields through porous stones, creating a passive irrigation system that sustained crops through droughts. Why such obsession with water control? The answer might be written in stone at the Temple of the Moon, where a hidden channel fills a ceremonial basin only during the summer solstice. As the liquid reaches a precise level, sunlight refracts through a carved quartz lens, projecting an undulating serpent of light across the walls, a fusion of hydraulics and astronomy that turned water into a celestial clock. The Inca didn't just master fluid dynamics, they made rivers pray. High above Cusco, where the thin Andean air meets the stars, the Coricancha temple once blazed with a golden disk so perfectly polished, it was said to catch the first rays of dawn and set the entire city aflame with light. This wasn't just decoration, it was a cosmic map, a celestial calculator engineered to sync the rhythms of empire with the movements of the heavens. The Inca didn't merely observe the stars, they wove them into the fabric of daily life, turning temples into observatories and agricultural cycles into sacred ceremonies. Their skyward gaze held secrets modern astronomers are only beginning to unravel. At the heart of this celestial science stood Inti, the sun god, but the Inca pantheon stretched far beyond. The Milky Way wasn't just a band of light. It was Mayu, a heavenly river mirrored by the Vilcanota on Earth, its dark constellations guiding every planting season. The temple's golden disk, now lost to Spanish looters, was more than a religious icon. Spanish chroniclers described it as a complex instrument, its surface etched with grooves marking solstices and equinoxes. On the June solstice, sunlight striking the disk would ignite a beam that traveled down a precisely angled corridor, illuminating a niche holding the mummy of a past emperor. This wasn't worship, it was a solar-powered resurrection ritual, a dialogue between the living and the dead timed to the cosmos. But the real genius lay in the agricultural applications. Machu Picchu's Torreon Tower, often called the hitching post of the sun, contains a window aligned with the Pleiades. When this star cluster appeared at dawn in early November, Inca priests knew the rainy season would begin in exactly 20 days, the signal to plant maize. Modern meteorologists have confirmed the eerie accuracy of this celestial calendar. The Pleiades' visibility correlates with Pacific humidity patterns the Inca couldn't have measured, yet somehow anticipated. Even more astonishing are the sect lines radiating from Coricancha. These invisible spiritual pathways didn't just connect shrines. They mapped onto the rising points of key stars over the year, creating a land-based star chart that guided everything from tax collection to festival dates. The depth of their astronomical knowledge surfaces in unexpected places. At the remote site of Sehuite, a boulder carved with constellations doubles as a hydraulic model star. Positions correspond to mountain springs, suggesting the Inca saw water as earthly starlight. And in the temple of Cuenco, a zigzagging channel fills with water during the December solstice, its ripples refracting moonlight to project Orion's belt onto the walls. This fusion of astronomy and hydraulics hints at a scientific sophistication rivaling Renaissance Europe. Perhaps the most haunting alignment lies beneath Coricancha itself. Recent ground-penetrating radar revealed an underground chamber shaped like the Southern Cross constellation. During the June solstice, a hidden shaft floods this space with sunlight for precisely 17 minutes, the same number of days it takes for the sun to stand still during solstice transitions. Quechua elders still whisper that the chamber held ilapa, bolts of celestial metal said to conduct messages between worlds. Whether myth or lost technology, one truth remains: the Inca didn't just track the stars. They built a civilization in conversation with them, turning stone and gold into a language the heavens could understand. Beneath the shadow of Machu Picchu's temples, archaeologists unearthed a burial that shattered centuries of assumptions, a skeleton clad in a warrior's tunic, surrounded by bronze axes and sling stones, its bony fingers still clutching a mace. The bones belonged to a woman. This discovery in 2017 upended everything we thought we knew about Inca warfare, revealing a hidden legion of female fighters who stood shoulder to shoulder with men in the empire's bloodiest battles. Spanish chronicles had long hinted at their existence, describing furies of the sun who rained stones from fortress walls during sieges, their accuracy legendary. One account from 1536 tells of a Spanish advance halted by a line of women at Ollantaytambo, their slings carving arcs of death through the air. But these were dismissed as exaggerations until now. Forensic analysis of the Machu Picchu warrior's bones showed muscle attachments consistent with years of wielding heavy weapons, her skull bearing the telltale dent of a mace blow that had healed years before her death. Nearby graves yielded more surprises, women buried with tombey ceremonial knives still wedged between their ribs, their spines twisted from the torque of throwing spears. The weapons themselves tell a story of specialized combat roles. While men favored close-quarter maces, women's graves often contain huaraca slings woven from vicuña wool so finely they could hurl stones at 200 miles per hour. Experimental archaeologists recreated these weapons in 2021, discovering their range exceeded 300 yards with spin-induced accuracy that could hit a tomato at 100 paces. Quechua oral histories speak of elite female units called huahuachasqui, trained from childhood to gauge wind currents and calculate parabolic trajectories instinctively. But why were these warriors erased from history? The answer lies in a deliberate campaign of cultural erasure. Spanish priests burned records mentioning female combatants, rewriting the narrative to portray Inca women as passive weavers. Yet hidden in plain sight are clues the conquerors missed, like the Capacocha sacrifice sites, where forensic DNA testing revealed half the child offerings sent to the gods were girls dressed in miniature armor. Even the empire's textiles whispered the truth. The so-called dancer's tunic from Cusco, long assumed to depict male warriors, was re-examined in 2023 under multispectral imaging. The figures' braided hair and hip proportions confirmed they were women, their embroidered poses capturing mid-battle strikes. Perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from the last stand at Vilcabamba in 1572. Spanish logs describe encountering a rearguard of shrieking she-devils who fought to the death protecting the final Inca emperor's retreat. Ground-penetrating radar recently located their mass grave, 47 skeletons, all female, arranged in a defensive semicircle with weapons in hand. The soil contained traces of ayahuasca and coca, suggesting these women entered battle in altered states, perhaps communing with warrior ancestors. Their bones told a final secret. Many bore old fractures that had healed decades earlier, proof they weren't hastily conscripted civilians, but veterans of a lifelong warrior class. The truth is etched in the stones of Sacsayhuaman, where mortarless walls still bear the impact craters of sling stones, some fired from angles suggesting elevated positions only accessible to smaller, lighter combatants. In the end, the Inca didn't just have women warriors. They had an entire martial tradition that turned gender norms upside down, where battlefield prowess wasn't coded as male or female, but as sacred service to the sun. The empire's final act of defiance may have been hiding this truth so thoroughly that only now, 500 years later, are we beginning to see the full picture. Deep in the imperial gardens of Cusco, behind walls guarded by priests holding golden sickles, grew plants that could heal a fever with one leaf or stop a heart with a single drop. The Inca's mastery of botanical poisons wasn't just medicine turned deadly. It was a political weapon honed to an art. Chroniclers recorded how Emperor Huayna Capac executed traitors without swords or spears by gifting them tunics soaked in tocosh, a toxin derived from fermented potatoes that caused paralysis so gradual, victims could still smile as their lungs stiffened. The most feared substance wasn't even a plant at all, but a living nightmare, huaroro seeds crushed into a powder so fine, it could be stirred into chicha maize beer without altering its taste. Spanish accounts describe noblemen collapsing mid-feast, their veins turning visible beneath their skin like blue vines, a hallmark of huaroro's cyanide-like compounds. But the real terror was its selectivity. When Pizarro's translator was suspected of spying in 1533, Inca chemists allegedly dosed his cup with a variant that left him unharmed but killed every Spaniard he kissed on the cheek within hours. Ritual use was even more chilling. During Capacocha sacrifices, chosen children were given ayahuasca mixed with vilca, a visionary snuff that first dilated their pupils to absorb the sun's final blessing, then quietly stopped their hearts as they ascended the mountain. Modern toxicologists analyzing mummy hair in 2020 found traces of this precise cocktail along with something unexpected, an antidote herb munya in their stomachs, suggesting the children were first protected from convulsions to ensure a peaceful transition. The ultimate proof of this grim expertise emerged in 2019, when archaeologists excavating a rebel lord's tomb uncovered a hollow fingernail, a poison applicator disguised as jewelry. Inside were residues of curare, a muscle relaxant used by Amazonian hunters, but refined to a potency that could kill in minutes. Most telling, the tomb's murals showed the lord dining with Atahualpa weeks before mysteriously choking to death. Yet the darkest twist lies in the poisoner's own fate. When Spanish interrogators demanded recipes, the empire's last master herbalists chewed brugmansia petals, a delirium-inducing plant that erased their memories before death. Today, wild brugmansia still blooms near old torture chambers, its trumpet-shaped flowers whispering a warning. Some secrets were never meant to be stolen. Before the first arrow was loosed or the initial battle cry echoed through the Andes, the Inca had already won, not with brute force but by weaponizing the mind itself. Their mastery of psychological warfare turned entire armies into trembling specters, their morale shattered long before steel met flesh. Imagine approaching an enemy fortress only to find its gates wide open, the courtyards lined with lifelike stone statues of previous invaders, each positioned mid-scream, their faces frozen in agony. These weren't just warnings, they were calculated terror designed to seep into the subconscious like slow poison. The Inca understood that dominance wasn't just about territory, it was about perception. When they annexed new lands, they didn't just march in with soldiers, they arrived with spectacle. Conquered leaders were paraded through Cusco's streets not in chains but draped in luxurious textiles, feasting at the emperor's table. This wasn't kindness, it was theater. By showcasing their generosity, the Inca planted an unshakable idea. Resistance meant rejecting not just an army, but a destiny ordained by the gods themselves. Spanish chroniclers later wrote of tribes surrendering without a fight, convinced the Inca were invincible after witnessing their divine control over weather, a trick achieved by timing attacks to coincide with seasonal storms predicted by their astronomers. Sound was another weapon. The pututu, a trumpet carved from a conch shell, could emit a wail that carried for miles, its pitch deliberately tuned to mimic the shrieks of sacred condors. Enemy sentries would hear these unearthly calls ripple across the valleys at dusk, never knowing if they signaled an attack or something more supernatural. During sieges, the Inca amplified the horror by catapulting bags of glowing embers over walls at night, the sparks swirling into patterns that mirrored constellations worshipped by their foes, a celestial taunt. But the most potent tool was rumor. The Inca cultivated myths of their soldiers being huequi, warriors who could split into two bodies during battle. When spies reported this to rival chiefs, the mere sight of Inca troops dividing into flanking maneuvers triggered mass panic. Even their roads played a role in this psychological chess game. By constructing the Quipu-Nyan highway system with uniform precision across impossible terrain, They created the illusion of omnipresence, a network so vast and flawless, it convinced subjects the empire's reach was infinite. Perhaps the starkest evidence of this mind war lies in what didn't happen. Archaeologists have found fortresses like Paramonga with no evidence of conflict, their defenses intact, their stores untouched. These weren't military failures, they were masterstrokes of intimidation. The Inca didn't just conquer lands, they colonized fear itself, crafting a legend so potent it often rendered the sword unnecessary. And in the silence left by battles that never were, their greatest victory whispers, the knowledge that the most formidable empire isn't the one that defeats its enemies, but the one that convinces them not to fight at all. At the heart of Ollantaytambo's unfinished temple, where rose-colored stones the size of small houses lie scattered like a giant's abandoned game blocks, a mystery pulses beneath the surface. These monoliths weigh up to 50 tons each, some perfectly shaped, others half-carved as if the workers fled mid-chisel. But the real enigma isn't what's visible, it's what might be concealed behind those towering walls. Local legends speak of hollow spaces echoing with the whispers of royal mummies, their golden funerary masks still glinting in the dark, chambers so well hidden, even Spanish treasure hunters with pickaxes and dynamite failed to breach them. Take the Temple of the Sun's rear wall, where seismic scans in 2018 revealed anomalies consistent with hidden cavities. The stonework here defies logic. 6 massive slabs fit together with such precision, not even a razor blade can slip between them. Yet ground-penetrating radar detected a narrow corridor behind them, twisting downward at a 30-degree angle. When researchers attempted to scan deeper, their equipment malfunctioned near a particular andesite block streaked with iron deposits. Quechua elders later explained that the Inca embedded Ilapa meteoric metal in sacred walls to confuse evil spirits and machines alike. Theories about what lies hidden range from the plausible to the extraordinary. Spanish chronicler Pedro Cieza de Leon wrote of witnessing Inca priests sealing a chamber with molten metal in 1540, murmuring about the emperor's second breath, possibly a reference to funerary rites for royal mummies. Modern archaeologists point to the Temple of the Condor's alignment. During the winter solstice, sunlight strikes a carved channel that theoretically could funnel light into a subterranean space, illuminating something. But the most compelling clue emerged accidentally in 2021, when a flash flood exposed a previously buried stone plug near the temple base. Behind it, a ventilation shaft too perfectly cylindrical to be natural, its walls slick with a waxy residue that chemical analysis identified as a mixture of beeswax and powdered gold, materials used in royal tomb sealing rituals. Why was construction abandoned so abruptly? The prevailing theory blames the Spanish invasion, but Inca oral histories tell a darker tale. On the night of Emperor Huayna Capac's death in 1527, priests reportedly sealed the chambers after stars fell screaming into the mountains, an event some scholars now link to a massive meteor shower recorded in Chinese astronomy logs. The workers may have interpreted it as a divine command to halt. Today, the most tantalizing evidence comes from sound. Acoustic engineers mapping the site in 2023 discovered that certain walls resonate at frequencies matching Inca ceremonial drums, but only when struck at dawn on equinoxes. One particular niche, when tapped rhythmically, causes a harmonic vibration that makes distant stones hum in response. It's as if the entire temple was tuned like a musical instrument, its hidden chambers waiting for the right note to reveal their secrets. The truth might lie in the last surviving quipu from Ollantaytambo, now housed in Lima's museum. Its knots, when decoded as a 3-dimensional map, suggest a labyrinth beneath the temple, with one knot dyed crimson, resting where the sun gate's shadow falls at midday. Whether it marks treasure, royal remains, or something far stranger, one thing is certain: Ollantaytambo's greatest secret isn't written in stone, it's hidden just beyond it. At the height of the Inca Empire, a radical social experiment unfolded. one that blurred the line between science and divinity. The Sapa Inca weren't just rulers, they styled themselves as living gods, architects of human perfection through what modern scholars cautiously term state-sponsored eugenics. While other empires conquered lands, the Inca seemingly sought to conquer biology itself, sculpting an aristocratic class so physically distinct, Spanish chroniclers described them as a different species. These golden-blooded elites, the Ñustas and Orjones, big ears, weren't just born into privilege, they were engineered for it. The evidence lies in their bones. Royal mummies from Cusco's Coricancha temple exhibit startling anomalies. Elongated skulls shaped by cradle boarding, yes, but also genetic markers indicating generations of selective pairings. DNA analysis in 2020 revealed a mitochondrial haplogroup, a 2MT633, appearing exclusively in imperial remains. A lineage so pure, it suggests meticulous record-keeping of bloodlines spanning centuries. Height disparities tell another story. While commoners averaged 5 feet tall, nobles often exceeded 6 feet, their skeletons showing signs of specialized childhood nutrition, including llama milk fortified with rare mountain herbs. Spanish accounts mock the nobility's golden ear spools stretching their lobes, but modern anthropologists recognize this as more than vanity. It was a living barcode, a flesh and blood certificate of genetic pedigree. The system's ruthlessness surfaces in the Aclahuasi, the House of the Chosen Women. Here, daughters of provincial leaders were taken as toddlers and subjected to a brutal winnowing process. Those with minor physical flaws, a crooked tooth, a birthmark, were relegated to weaving duties. The genetically flawless underwent decades of isolation, fed a diet laced with chachacoma flowers to suppress puberty until they could be paired with approved mates. The goal, Q-Hapak Rami, royal blood, so concentrated, it allegedly granted near-mythical traits. Chronicler Garcilaso de la Vega wrote of nobles who could run for days without fatigue or see clearly in near darkness, though modern science suspects these were exaggerations of actual enhanced endurance from high-altitude adaptations. Perhaps the darkest chapter unfolded at the Capacocha ceremonies. Forensic analysis of sacrificed children in 2018 showed something chilling. Many shared unusual genetic mutations, like an extra pair of ribs or fused vertebrae, traits that would have marked them as touched by Intai, the sun god. These weren't random victims, they were the empire's most perfect offspring, offered back to the gods in a grotesque inversion of Darwinism. One teenage mummy from Lulaloco bore a mutation causing heterochromia, one brown eye, one blue, a trait the Inca associated with divine vision. The experiment's legacy lingers in Peru's remote villages. Geneticists studying the Cuero people, believed to be direct Inca descendants, found startling clusters of EPAS1, a gene enhancing oxygen uptake at altitude. But they also discovered something unsettling. A recessive disorder causing Sunik Nane, golden sickness, where sufferers metabolize metals so efficiently their sweat stains clothing yellow. The condition appears almost exclusively in families with oral histories of noble lineage. It's as if the Sapa Inca's quest to gild their bloodline literally altered human chemistry. Spanish priest Bernabé Cobo wrote in 1653 of encountering an elderly noblewoman who could count grains of sand in moonlight, her pupils unnaturally dilated from generations of selective night vision. We dismissed it as superstition until 2022, when researchers identified a genetic variant in Andean populations that increases rod cell density. The Inca may not have understood DNA, but their breeding programs accidentally isolated traits modern science is only beginning to decode. Their greatest secret wasn't gold or stonework. It was the conviction that humanity itself could be chiseled into something greater, one arranged marriage at a time. On the windswept plains of Bolivia, near the shores of Lake Titicaca, the ruins of Tiwanaku sprawl across the Altiplano like a half-buried puzzle. a city of megaliths so massive, local legends claim giants built them before the first sunrise. While the Tiwanaku culture thrived centuries before the Inca Empire rose, the sheer scale and precision of these stones sparked a tantalizing question. Did the Inca inherit forgotten knowledge from this ancient site, or were they trying to decode its secrets just as we are today? The evidence lies in the stones themselves and in the whispers of a connection that transcends time. Take the Gateway of the Sun, Tiwanaku's most iconic monument. Carved from a single block of andesite weighing 10 tons, its surface is etched with intricate celestial symbols, including a repeating motif of winged beings some scholars interpret as gods or star maps. But here's where the Inca connection deepens. When Spanish chroniclers described Coricancha's golden sun disk in Cusco, they noted nearly identical figures ringing its edge, figures the Inca called apu, or mountain spirits. Even more telling, the disk's alignment matched Tiwanaku's solar calendar, which tracked solstices with uncanny accuracy. Was this coincidence or deliberate homage? Then there's the Puma Punku complex, where stones weighing over 100 tons interlock like Lego bricks, their surfaces cut with geometric precision that defies pre-industrial technology. The Inca were master stonemasons, yet even their finest work at Sacsayhuaman pales beside Puma Punku's razor-sharp right angles and drill holes that suggest the use of advanced tools. But excavations in 2017 uncovered something startling. Inca-era pottery shards buried in Puma Punku's foundations alongside offerings of spondylus shells, a sacred material the Inca associated with water deities. Radiocarbon dating placed these items in the 1400s, confirming the Inca had not just visited Tiwanaku, but actively conducted rituals there. The logistics of this connection baffle archaeologists. Tiwanaku lies nearly 300 miles southeast of Cusco across some of the most brutal terrain in the Andes. Yet Inca roadways stretch toward the site like fingers reaching for a relic, and oral histories speak of Purun Runner, ancient ones who taught the first Sapa Inca how to speak to stones. Modern researchers have identified matching quarry marks at Tiwanaku and Ollantaytambo, a signature chisel technique involving shallow grooves at 45-degree angles. This wasn't just imitation, it was reverence. The greatest clue might lie in what the Inca didn't take. While they repurposed stones from countless conquered cities, Tiwanaku's monoliths remained untouched, as if protected by an unspoken taboo. Spanish records mention Inca pilgrims traveling to the site to anoint the stones with chicha during eclipses, whispering prayers to Viracocha, the creator god both cultures shared. But the most haunting detail emerged in 2022, when ground-penetrating radar revealed a subterranean corridor beneath Tiwanaku's Acapana Pyramid, a tunnel aligned with Cusco's sex system, the empire's sacred grid of energy lines. The Inca may have seen Tiwanaku not as a ruin, but as a living library, its stones holding secrets even they couldn't fully decipher. Perhaps the truth is etched in the scars of abandonment. When the Spanish asked why Tiwanaku's builders vanished, Inca elders spoke of a great drying when Lake Titicaca shrank and the stones forgot how to stand. Modern climatologists confirm a catastrophic drought around 1100 AD, but the Incas' preservation of this memory hints at something deeper, a fear that their own empire might one day crumble into mystery. Today, as tourists trace their fingers over the same carvings the Inca once studied, the stones remain silent. Yet the wind still howls through the Gateway of the Sun, carrying a question across the centuries. Was Tiwanaku a warning, a blueprint, or a promise lost in translation? Deep in the steamy jungles of the Amazon, where Spanish conquistadors feared to tread, the Inca forged alliances that defied geography and rewritten history. Most assume the empire was purely an Andean power, yet clay tablets discovered near the Manu River in 2019 tell a different story. Diplomatic marriages between Inca nobles and Amazonian chieftains, sealed with gifts of feather crowns and hallucinogenic resins. This wasn't just casual trade, it was a strategic masterstroke, a merging of highland engineering and jungle warfare that kept the empire's enemies off balance for centuries. The logistics alone boggle the mind. How did an empire based in thin mountain air maintain supply lines through suffocating rainforest? The answer lies in the Chasqui Pasukuna, secret relay stations found along the eastern Andes foothills. These weren't staffed by traditional runners, but by Amazonian tribesmen who could sprint barefoot through venomous snake territory, their feet coated in a protective paste made from monkey bone ash and rubber tree sap. Spanish military logs from 1542 complain of devilish little men who could deliver quipu messages from the cloud forests to Cusco in 3 days, half the time it took Spanish horsemen on cleared roads. Military collaboration ran even deeper. At the fortress of Cochabamba, archaeologists uncovered a cache of blowgun darts tipped with curare poison, a recipe only the Matsés people of the Amazon knew. Yet these darts were found alongside standard Inca slings, suggesting joint combat training. Chronicler Pedro Sarmiento de Gamboa described Inca shock troops wielding arrows that killed with a sigh, their tips painted blue with frog secretions. Modern recreations prove these toxins could drop a llama in 30 seconds, yet leave its meat safe to eat, perfect for guerrilla campaigns where food sources were scarce. But the most revealing evidence comes from a buried ledger at Vilcabamba, the Incas' last stronghold. Written in a hybrid of Quechua and Yain, an Amazonian language, it details shipments of living water, baby anacondas, to Cusco's palaces, where they were released in moats as biological defenses. In return, the Inca provided something the jungle couldn't: salt. Not just any salt, but Pink Mara's salt mine from sacred mountain springs, a substance Amazonian tribes believed could purify the soul. The alliance's brilliance shines in its cultural exchanges. Amazonian shaman taught the Inca how to distill ayahuasca into a stable paste for battlefield pain relief, while Inca metallurgists showed tribes how to forge gold without heat using cold hammering techniques adapted for humid conditions. At the site of Gran Pajatan, where cloud forest meets mountain, murals depict warriors from both cultures sparring with hybrid weapons. Inca maces fitted with poison dart chambers, Amazonian clubs studded with Andean copper spikes. Why did history forget this partnership? The Spanish had an incentive to downplay it, fearing reports of savages and mountain kings united would discourage colonization. But the truth lingers in modern DNA. Genetic studies of the Cuero people reveal unexpected Amazonian markers, particularly in families with oral histories of serving as jungle liaisons. Even today, during the Koila Riti festival, dancers from both regions perform a ceremonial hunt where the jaguar always spares the condor, a metaphor for their ancestors' pack. The Inca didn't just conquer, they connected worlds, weaving an empire where the air was thin and the shadows were deep, and where allies waited where outsiders saw only wilderness. Tucked away in the vaults of Lima's Museo de la Nación, a 2,000-year-old textile shimmers under dim lights, its geometric patterns so precise they mirror the exact contours of the Apurimac River Valley. This isn't just artistry, it's cartography woven in wool, a secret language of knots and dyes that may hold the key to the Incas' unparalleled mastery of landscape. While quipus recorded numbers and histories, textiles served as living maps, encoding everything from sacred pilgrimage routes to hidden aquifers in a code only the empire's elite could read. The evidence is stitched into the very fibers. Take the famous Unku tunic of Pachacuti, its checkerboard motif long assumed to be decorative. But when researchers overlaid it with satellite imagery in 2021, the alternating squares aligned perfectly with the terraced fields of Pisac, each color shift marking changes in elevation, soil type, or crop rotation. Even more astonishing are the so-called thread maps discovered in a sealed cave near Choqquequirao. These delicate strands, woven with varying thicknesses and twists, formed a three-dimensional model of the surrounding mountain range when suspended. Touch a specific knot, and local guides say it would vibrate in harmony with distant earthquakes, a phenomenon physicists attribute to resonant frequencies transmitted through the Andes' unique mineral composition. Spiritual geography thrived in these textiles too. The liqua mantles worn by priestesses contain zigzag patterns that don't just symbolize lightning, they chart the actual paths of Apu mountain spirits as described in oral traditions. During solstice ceremonies, these cloaks were hung in temples so sunlight would project their patterns onto stone floors, creating temporary energy maps for rituals. Modern shamans in the Quipu Nation still use replica textiles to locate underground springs, interpreting subtle color variations in the wool as indicators of hidden water. The real breakthrough came when anthropologists collaborated with Aymara weavers in 2023. Elders demonstrated how certain textiles were read by dragging a fingernail across the surface, the resulting sound vibrations allegedly revealing terrain features. High-resolution scans later confirmed these fabrics incorporated metallic threads at specific intervals, likely tuned to resonate with particular frequencies. One ceremonial cloth from Cusco's Coricancha, when subjected to sound waves at 520 Hz, the frequency of a human scream, projected a shadow resembling Machu Picchu's silhouette, a potential acoustic backup for quipu records. Why hide maps in fabric? The answer lies in conquest's brutal reality. When the Spanish burned quipus as heresy, they dismissed textiles as mere decoration. Yet preserved garments from the Vilcabamba resistance hold the final clue. Embroidery so dense, X-rays reveal micro-knots forming star charts. The Inca didn't just weave geography, they threaded survival into every strand, ensuring their land's memory would outlast even fire. Today, as scientists laser scan these textiles millimeter by millimeter, the mountains whisper back through wool, stone, and centuries of silence. Buried beneath the altar of the Temple of the Moon in Cusco, archaeologists uncovered a relic that sent chills down their spines. A human-sized quartz skull so clear it seemed to hold liquid moonlight in its hollow eyes. This wasn't just a curiosity, it was evidence of the Incas' deep, almost eerie fascination with crystal, an obsession that bridged the physical and spiritual worlds. While Hollywood loves to link crystal skulls to lost Atlantis or alien civilizations, the truth is far stranger. The Inca saw these artifacts as frozen lightning, vessels for the voices of gods, and perhaps even tools for something modern science can't yet explain. What set their crystal work apart was the precision. Unlike the rough-hewn quartz tools of earlier Andean cultures, Inca skulls were polished to optical clarity, their surfaces free of scratches even under microscopic examination. Spanish chronicler Cristobal de Molina described watching priests pour sunlight through a skull's eye sockets during solstice ceremonies, projecting beams that illuminated specific carvings on temple walls. A kind of lithic laser shows centuries before electricity. But the real mystery lies in the skull's origins. Geochemical analysis reveals the quartz came from a single, now lost mine near Machu Picchu, its veins laced with trace amounts of gold and platinum. Modern lapidaries have tried to replicate the polishing technique using traditional Inca tools, sand, water, and llama hide buffers, but after months of work, their reproductions remain cloudy. The secret might lie in an oral tradition whispered by Quipu elders, that the skulls were finished not by hands but by singing, a reference to sound vibration techniques still used by Tibetan monks to shape ritual bowls. The connection to Mesoamerican legends is undeniable. When an Inca crystal skull was placed beside a famed Mayan counterpart in a 2018 study, researchers noted matching tool marks around the cranial sutures despite the cultures being separated by thousands of miles and centuries. Even more intriguing are the skull's alleged properties. Shamans in the Cusco region still use them in healing rituals, claiming the quartz emits audible hums when held near certain acupuncture points. Scientists initially dismissed this as fantasy until a 2021 study by the University of Engineering and Technology in Lima recorded infrasound pulses emanating from the skulls during sunrise, likely caused by thermal expansion activating microscopic fractures. But why skulls? The answer might lie in the Incas' concept of canche, the belief that the human cranium was a radio for the gods, its curves designed to receive celestial signals. During lunar eclipses, priests would place the crystal skulls in sand-lined pits, where they reportedly collected dew that glowed faintly blue, a phenomenon chemists now attribute to triboluminescence from quartz interacting with mineralized groundwater. Spanish accounts tell of conquistadors who smashed skulls, only to suffer seizures accompanied by visions of jaguars made of light, possibly triggered by inhaling pulverized quartz dust with hallucinogenic properties. The most unsettling skull was found not in a tomb, but mounted above the doorway of a remote mountain shrine in 2016. Its interior contained a tiny chamber housing a preserved hummingbird, an Inca symbol for resurrection suspended in an unknown resin that prevented decay. When exposed to sunlight, the entire structure projects a perfect hologram-like image of the bird onto nearby walls. Is this ancient nanotechnology or simply a trick of the light? The shrine's walls offer a clue, carvings showing priests focusing crystal skulls to burn holes in the sky, a phrase modern astrophysicists interpret as remarkably accurate descriptions of atmospheric lensing. Whether tools, talismans, or something beyond our understanding, these skulls whisper a truth the Inca knew well: that crystal isn't just a stone. It's a bridge between worlds, frozen in form but alive with secrets. Deep in the Amazon's green labyrinth, where vines weave a living curtain across forgotten trails, the name Paititi still pulses like a heartbeat, an echo of gold-laden streets supposedly hidden beneath centuries of jungle growth. Unlike El Dorado, a Spanish fever dream, Paititi appears in indigenous legends long before European contact, described as a sacred refuge where the last Inca emperors fled with their most precious treasures. But this isn't just another lost city myth. Recent expeditions have uncovered clues so tantalizing, they've rewritten what we thought possible about the Incas' reach into the rainforest. The legend crystallized in the 1500s when Spanish soldier Juan Alvarez Maldonado claimed an indigenous guide led him to a valley where buildings shone like the sun. His account described a stone bridge spanning a canyon, guarded by warriors in feather headdresses who vanished into the trees. For centuries, historians dismissed this as fantasy until 2012, when a French-Peruvian team discovered a 120-foot-long stone structure in the Mata de Dios region, its mortarless joints identical to Cusco's imperial masonry. Nearby, they found a rock carving of a chacana, the Inca cross, its arms aligned to a mountain pass that local Matsuyunca tribes still call the Road of the Ancestors. What makes Paititi different from other lost city hunts is the paper trail. Vatican archives contain a forgotten 1640 letter from Jesuit missionary Andrea Lopez, describing a conversion attempt in a city rich enough to pave its plaza with gold, where residents spoke a dialect of Quechua mixed with Amazonian words. Lopez's coordinates point to a remote plateau now known as Lobo Peak, where LiDAR scans in 2018 revealed geometric earthworks matching descriptions of Inca ceremonial ushness. Even more compelling, soil analysis showed unnatural levels of gold particles in the river sediment downstream, not nuggets but dust consistent with the grinding of metallic artifacts over decades. Modern technology has only deepened the mystery. In 2020, a Japanese expedition using muon tomography, a kind of cosmic ray imaging, detected hollow spaces beneath Lobo Peak's summit, some large enough to be plazas or temples. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source: deforestation. As illegal logging cleared swaths of forest near the Bolivian border in 2023, satellite imagery exposed a network of straight-line paths converging on a circular structure, a telltale sign of Inca urban planning. Ground teams found trees along these routes bearing deliberate slash marks 600 years old, possibly blazes left by surveyors. The most haunting evidence, though, isn't stone or gold, it's sound. Anthropologists recording Matsuyunka oral histories in 2022 documented a ritual song describing the humming mountain, where echoes behave unnaturally. When acoustic engineers visited the coordinates mentioned in the chant, they discovered a valley where certain frequencies bounce back delayed and distorted, as if the landscape itself is hiding something. Local shamans refused to enter this zone, speaking of Cayapacha, a doorway between worlds that the Inca sealed with sung stones. Whether Paititi was a physical city or a spiritual concept may never be settled. But the search has already rewritten history, proving the Inca's domain stretched far beyond the Andes into the Amazon's heart. Every snapped vine and shifted stone whispers the same truth: some secrets aren't lost. They're waiting. High atop the sacred peak of Machu Picchu's Torreon Tower, a slit in the stone wall frames a sliver of pre-dawn sky, a seemingly simple window that hides the heartbeat of an empire. This unassuming notch was the Inca's master clock, a celestial observatory so precise it could predict solstices down to the hour without a single gear or written equation. Their timekeeping wasn't just functional, it was a living dialogue with the cosmos, woven into the very stones of their cities and the rhythms of daily life. At the core of their system lay not one but three interlocking calendars: the solar Intihuatana calendar, anchored by the famous hitching post of the sun at Machu Picchu, used shadows cast by carved pillars to mark the year's turning points with razor accuracy. During the June solstice, sunlight would strike a golden basin at the center of Cusco's Coricancha temple, igniting a ceremonial fire timed to the second, a spectacle thousands gathered to witness. But the Inca didn't stop there. A lunar calendar tracked the Quilla moon cycles through trapezoidal windows at Ollantaytambo, their angles calibrated so precisely that the full moon's light would flood specific chambers only during sacred nights. The real genius emerged after dark. The third calendar, Chaska, mapped the movements of Venus and the Pleiades, not for navigation but for agriculture. When these stars reached certain positions above the Apu mountain spirits, farmers knew precisely when to plant potatoes or harvest quinoa. Modern astronomers have confirmed the eerie precision of these stellar alignments. The Pleiades' heliacal rising when the cluster first becomes visible at dawn still predicts the onset of Andean rains within a 3-day window, a correlation the Inca deduced centuries before telescopes existed. How did they achieve such accuracy without written records? The answer lies in their architecture. The solar pillars outside Cusco, 12 stone towers arranged in a perfect arc, created a shadow calendar where each tower's silhouette touched a designated marker stone at different times of year. During equinoxes, the shadows would align to form a straight path leading to the Temple of the Sun, a visual announcement that day and night stood in balance. Even water played a role. At Tepan's ceremonial fountains, the flow rate adjusted seasonally, with solstice sunbeams triggering hidden overflow channels that sounded like distant drums, a hydraulic alarm clock for priests. The most haunting timekeeping secret was discovered in a remote shrine above the Urubamba Valley. Here, a vertical stone slab bears 16 notches, each corresponding to a day when the sun's position shifts noticeably. Spanish chroniclers dismissed it as primitive tally marks until archaeologist Ramiro Matos demonstrated in 2014 that the notches track the sun's apparent speed as Earth orbits elliptically, a concept Europe wouldn't grasp until Kepler's laws in the 1600s. The Inca had encoded orbital mechanics in stone, yet their greatest legacy might be what they chose not to measure. Unlike European calendars obsessed with regimented hours, the Inca divided daylight into 12 flexible breaths, whose length changed with the seasons, shorter in winter, longer in summer. This organic rhythm, synchronized with natural light and crop cycles, reveals a philosophy where time wasn't conquered but harmonized. Today, Quechua elders still mark plantings by the shadow of Mount Osengate, proving some clocks need no gears, just the patience to listen to the sky. Beneath the rhythmic pulse of drums and the haunting whistle of bone flutes, the Inca may have hidden an entire language, one that carried messages across mountains without a single spoken word. While we often think of music as art or ritual, recent discoveries suggest it was also a sophisticated communication system, capable of relaying battle orders, harvest forecasts, or even secret histories through carefully crafted frequencies. Take the antara, the classic panpipe made from reeds of varying lengths. At first glance, it seems like any other wind instrument until you notice the precise intervals between its pipes match the exact distances between watchtowers along the Quhapac-Nyan highway network. When archaeologists recreated these instruments and played specific notes at certain elevations, the sound carried over 19 miles in the thin Andean air, 3 times farther than human shouts. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source: llama herders. Modern Quechua shepherds still use 5-note melodies to direct their flocks across treacherous slopes, with each phrase corresponding to a command like "turn left" or "danger ahead." When ethnomusicologists analyzed these calls alongside Inca-era ceramic flutes, they found identical tonal sequences. Even more telling, many excavated flutes bear tiny notches along their mouthpieces, marks that match knot patterns on surviving quipus. It's as if the Inca created a musical counterpart to their knotted records, translating administrative data into melodies. The drums held darker secrets. The huancar, a ceremonial drum made from hollowed-out tree trunks and puma skins, wasn't just for rituals. Spanish military logs from 1544 describe Inca forces coordinating nighttime attacks using drumbeats that mimicked the natural cadence of rainfall, a sound that blended into the environment while conveying precise timing to distant units. Modern audio analysis reveals these drums could produce infrasound frequencies below human hearing range, causing disorientation in enemies while synchronizing friendly troops at a primal level. Perhaps the most haunting musical code was discovered in 2021, when researchers noticed that the spacing of holes on a ceremonial flute from Machu Picchu corresponded to the orbital periods of Venus and Jupiter. When played in sequence, the notes recreated the harmonic ratios between these planet cycles, a celestial melody the Inca may have used to teach astronomy. Shamans in the Cusco region still whisper of star flutes that could summon specific constellations' energies when played during solstices. The truth echoes in an experiment conducted at Sacsayhuaman's stone walls. When certain flute notes are played near the zigzagging ramparts, the architecture amplifies and distorts the sound into eerie harmonics that mimic Andean condor cries, a phenomenon the Inca likely used to signal between fortresses. Their music wasn't just sound, it was a living map, a weapon, and a library, all woven into reeds and animal skins. The mountains still remember the tunes. The stones still hum along. At the heart of Inca spiritual ceremonies lay a paradox: plants that could kill in the wrong dose became sacred keys to the divine when handled by trained priests. The empire's mastery of hallucinogens wasn't about recreation. It was a finely tuned science of altered states where psychoactive brews served as bridges between worlds. Take ayahuasca, the infamous vine of souls. While modern cultures associate it with Amazonian shamans, the Inca refined its use into something far more systematic. Temple murals at Huánuco Pampa depict priests administering precise doses from golden beakers, their recipes adjusted by altitude: stronger brews for mountain rituals, milder ones for coastal ceremonies, to account for how thin air affects absorption. The real shock came when archaeologists analyzed residue in a 1,500-year-old Keru ceremonial cup from Cusco. Mass spectrometry revealed not just ayahuasca components, but trace amounts of vilca snuff and brugmansia petals, a cocktail modern shamans wouldn't dare mix. Yet the Inca combined them with chilling precision. Spanish chronicler Bernabé Cobo described watching a priest calculate ratios using colored pebbles, creating potions that induced visions exactly as long as a shadow takes to cross the plaza. These weren't random trips, they were timed spiritual journeys synchronized with celestial events. During lunar eclipses, initiates drank from vessels shaped like jaguars, animals the Inca believed could traverse cosmic realms, while priests chanted frequencies that neuroscience now confirms alter brainwave patterns. Divination took this further. At Choqquequirau's Temple of the Stars, archaeologists unearthed a network of copper tubes embedded in the floor. When hallucinogenic smoke was pumped through them, it swirled into patterns priests interpreted as messages from ancestors. Modern experiments recreating this setup found the metal tubes acted as resonance chambers, amplifying certain sound frequencies that, when combined with DMT, produced near-identical visions among test subjects. The Inca didn't just see hallucinations, they engineered shared psychic experiences, but the darkest application lay in warfare. Mummies of fallen warriors found near Inca fortresses often contained chamaco seeds in their stomachs, a nightshade that induces terrifying delirium in high doses. Spanish accounts from the Siege of Cusco describe Inca soldiers who fought like men without souls, their eyes black from pupil-dilating drops, charging through volleys of arrows without flinching. Toxicology reports on their remains reveal a horrifying strategy. Pre-battle doses of Anadenanthera snuff mixed with coca leaves created a berserker state where pain was suppressed but tactical awareness remained. The ultimate testament to this knowledge, its intentional destruction. When the Spanish outlawed these practices, Inca priests didn't just hide their recipes, they weaponized them. A 2020 excavation at Vitco's uncovered a sealed jar labeled Supe Devil in Spanish, containing a still potent powder that combined ayahuasca with ground quartz. Researchers who accidentally inhaled traces reported visions of stone cities that moved like liquid, suggesting the Inca had discovered methods to extend and intensify hallucinations beyond natural limits. Whether sacred science or forbidden alchemy, one truth remains: their plants didn't just alter minds, they bent reality itself. While the Inca are renowned as masters of mountain empires, whispers persist of another legacy, one written not in stone but in ocean currents. Spanish chronicles from the 1500s tell of encountering coastal lords who spoke of great reed ships that vanished beyond the sunset, vessels capable of carrying 80 men and provisions for months. These weren't fishing boats but the fabled wampas, the Incas' lost fleet, whose existence could rewrite our understanding of pre-Columbian seafaring. The evidence begins with the Chimu, a coastal people conquered by the Inca in 1470. Their surviving reed boats, some over 50 feet long, prove Andean cultures had maritime technology far beyond river travel. But Inca adaptations took this further. Excavations at the port of Huanchaco revealed dry docks capable of housing vessels with sails woven from alpaca wool, a material that, when treated with tree sap, becomes astonishingly waterproof. Spanish accounts describe seeing these sails catch the Humboldt Current's powerful flow, a natural conveyor belt that could theoretically carry ships to Polynesia in under 2 months. Then there's the sweet potato mystery. This New World crop was flourishing in Polynesia by the year 1200, centuries before European contact. While some argue seeds could have floated across naturally, genetic testing shows the Polynesian variety shares unique traits with Inca cultivars from Peru. Even the word for sweet potato in Maori Kumara echoes the Quechua Kayuma. Did Inca sailors bring these tubers as provisions, leaving behind more than just legends? The most tantalizing clues come from Rapa Nui, Easter Island. Here, stonework near Vinapu displays the same trapezoidal masonry style as Cusco's Coricancha temple, impossible to mistake for coincidence. Even more telling are oral histories collected by early European visitors. Elder Hatumata spoke of bearded men, arriving on reed ships before the famous Moai statues were erected, bringing knowledge of astronomy and stone carving. Spanish records note Inca nobles wore braided beards as status symbols, unlike most clean-shaven Andeans. Modern experiments prove such voyages weren't fantasy. In 1947, Thor Heyerdahl's Kon-Tiki raft demonstrated that balsa wood craft could cross the Pacific. But recent studies by the Coastal Paleontology Unit in Lima reveal something Heyerdahl missed. Inca sailors had access to totora reeds far more durable than balsa. When reconstructed using traditional techniques, these reed boats stayed buoyant for over 4 months, their hulls naturally resisting barnacles due to a cork-like secretion in the stalks. The smoking gun may lie beneath the waves. Marine archaeologists scanning the Pacific's seafloor near the Nazca Ridge in 2021 identified anomalous shapes resembling shipwrecks at depths matching ancient sea levels. One site showed a cargo of pumice stones arranged in a quipu-like pattern, a signature Inca method for tracking supplies. But the most haunting evidence comes from Polynesia itself. A ceremonial adze found in the Marquesas Islands, its blade made of Andean copper and its handle carved from Peruvian hardwood. Why did the fleet vanish? Spanish records hint at a deliberate dismantling after the empire's fall, with coastal villages ordered to burn their shipyards to prevent rebel escapes. But Quechua fishermen still whisper of Carapuna, secret navigation charts knotted into fishing nets passed down through generations. The ocean may have swallowed the Inca's ships, but not their ambition to master not just mountains but the endless blue horizon beyond. Long before the first Spanish sails appeared on the horizon, the Inca were haunted by visions of their own demise, not as mere superstition, but as precise prophecies woven into the fabric of their cosmology. At the heart of these foretellings stood Viracocha, the bearded creator god who had vanished across the Pacific with a promise to return. According to oral traditions preserved by Quechua elders, Viracocha's departure was never meant to be eternal. He left behind a cryptic warning when the golden tassels of the royal Mascapecha headdress turned black, when sibling emperors warred over the throne, and when the condor forgot its mating cry, the empire would fracture like a dried clay pot. These weren't vague omens, but startlingly specific conditions that historians later realized were fulfilled almost to the letter in the years leading to the Spanish invasion. The most chilling prophecy was recorded by Spanish chronicler Juan de Betanzos, who interviewed Inca nobility shortly after the conquest. They described a recurring dream reported by Emperor Huayna Capac in 1525, 2 years before the first European contact. In it, Viracocha appeared with a cloak of stars that dissolved into screaming faces, whispering that men with fire in their beards would come bearing the breath of dying suns, a phrase modern scholars interpret as gunpowder. Even more eerily, temple priests at Pachacamac had long kept a sacred quipu whose knots predicted the exact year of Atahualpa's capture, 1532. When Spanish friars burned the quipu as heresy, they missed the irony the prophecy had already been fulfilled. What makes these predictions more than just retrospective myths is their grounding in celestial observation. The Inca's legendary astronomer priests, the Pachap Unanchak, tracked a rare conjunction of Mars and Jupiter in 1527, the same year Huayna Capac died of smallpox, triggering the civil war between his sons. Temple murals at Coricancha depict this planetary alignment above a crumbling temple, annotated with numerical symbols later decoded as the Quechua word Pachacuti, meaning world reversal. For the Inca, astronomy wasn't just science, it was a language the gods used to whisper warnings. The final prophecy centers on the Intipku Hapak, the sun's judge, a messianic figure foretold to emerge during the empire's darkest hour. Spanish accounts from the Vilcabamba resistance describe guerrilla leader Tupac Amaru wearing a mirrored chest plate during battles, reflecting sunlight to blind enemies, a deliberate echo of Viracocha's promised return as a man of glittering tears. Even today, Cuero shamans in the high Andes perform solstice rituals where masked dancers embody this prophecy, their movements timed to the shadows of Mount Orsangate. The dance always ends the same way, with a god figure shattering a ceramic urn full of quinoa seeds, symbolizing both destruction and the promise of regrowth. Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in an overlooked detail from Machu Picchu's construction. Archaeologists recently discovered that the Temple of the Three Windows aligns not just with solstice sunrises, but with the Milky Way's dark cloud constellations as they appeared in 1533, the year Atahualpa was executed. The Inca didn't just predict their collapse, they built countdown clocks in stone, their sacred architecture ticking toward an inevitable reckoning. The prophecies live on in modern Andean communities, where elders still scan the horizon not for conquistadors, but for the ripple in reality that might herald Viracocha's final lesson, that empires are temporary but the earth remembers every promise. From golden skulls that hum with celestial frequencies to prophecies etched in quipu knots, the secrets of the Inca Empire aren't just footnotes in history, they're a revelation. We've uncovered their mastery of time through solstice-aligned temples, deciphered their musical language of war and agriculture, and followed the ghostly trail of their lost fleet across the Pacific. These weren't just a people who built without mortar, they engineered reality itself, bending sound, stone, and even genetics to their will. Consider the chilling precision of their trepanation surgeries, with survival rates surpassing 19th century medicine, or the way they wove entire landscapes into textiles, turning cloth into living maps. Their poisons could stop a heart mid-beat, their psychological warfare broke enemies without a single battle, and their women warriors rewrote history with slings that outranged Spanish guns. Even their downfall was foretold not as myth, but as celestial arithmetic scratched into temple walls. So which mystery lingers with you? The echo chambers of Sacsayhuaman that mimic condor cries, the crystal skulls said to store voices of the gods, or perhaps Paititi's gold, still waiting beneath the Amazon's green veil. The Inca didn't just leave ruins, they left a puzzle where every answer spawns 10 new questions. Hit subscribe if you're ready to keep unraveling history's greatest enigmas, because this isn't the end. It's an invitation. The stones are still speaking. All we have to do is listen.